Hi. Okay, today we're going to learn something that just explodes your skills into a whole new level. Okay. Um, you're part of a community of programmers. And to date, everything that you've run, you've written by yourself. Maybe you looked at some examples, but basically you built everything from scratch. One of the key ideas of object-oriented programming is that we can modularize and make reusable code that can then be expanded and generalized by other people. Okay, so we're going to start that process today using a simple library that's freely available on the web called Jfugue. All right, and it allows Java to make music in ways that aren't supported by the regular Java classes that are distributed to you when you install the SDK. So let me show you how to do that in Jgrasp. You're going to start by going to some website, in this case, Jfugue. Okay, people may have already figured this out when we kind of teased this earlier on, telling them to go to the Apache Commons and use the built-in libraries there for statistical function. Well, if you didn't quite get to that then, we're going to make this easy as pie right now. So you find a site like Apache Commons or Jfugue. You say, wow, I would really love to be able to do the things that this lets Java do. And they say, no problem. Here is a jar file, a Java archive. So this is a zipped up file, and inside that file are classes, .class files, that are additional classes that allow, and packages, packaged up probably, just like you're used to in the regular Java structure, and handed over to you for free to use in your programs. So I'm going to download this. Okay, we'll click here and download this. Meanwhile, over in examples, we're going to take a look and say, well, what new classes does this give me? Say, oh, here they are. For example, I'll be able to say things now like new player. And player can do things like play musical notes. Or if we scroll down further here, it does even more sophisticated things like, say, a chord progression. Make a new chord progression. The first and then the fourth and then the fifth chord. And here we could say, well, what key would you like that in? What chords would those be? And put them into a list of chords. There's no chord class. There's no chord progression class in Java by default. So how do we get Jgrasp to see what's inside this newly packaged archive of class files? Well, let's fire up Jgrasp. And I've just copied and dumped in this sample code here, okay? So it says import from this location, okay? And this is going to be interpreted on your system as a sequence of folders. Normally what people do is, you see how this looks almost like a domain name in reverse, right? .org is usually at the end, but here org. Is in the beginning. So we do that to try and make it a unique, it's a common style for trying to make a unique directory structure for you to put these new files in. So what I had to do though was say, go to the settings for where you look for classes, the class path. Okay, click into paths, right? This is where we look for other files and try and resolve missing resources. Class paths is where we go to look for classes that are missing. So the list of folders here is where Java is going to look every time it sees the name of a class that it doesn't recognize. So I've said, give me a new one of these, and I told it to browse, and I went to where it was in my downloads folder and dropped in that new jar file. Okay, if I hadn't done that, let's go back and kind of backtrack. Okay, if I take this guy and I remove it. Okay, so this is how your system looks right now. We try and compile this, and it says, I don't know what you're talking about. What kind of player? What's a player? There's nothing I know about called player. So, oh, yeah, we didn't explain to you what player is. Let's go to class path and tell you what a player is. It's in that jar file I just downloaded. Now, normally you're going to want a better structure than just leaving everything in the downloads folder. Okay, I'm just doing that for speed here. So there's our old error message. Now we've downloaded the jar file and told Jgrasp where it lives. So when we compile now, no problem. And when we run it, so it's playing these musical notes. So now all of the classes that were in that jar file are part of Java to us. We can talk about players or chords. It has its own note idea. It has a chord progression idea. So here we can set a certain key and play chords, so we can compile and run this program. We could change it, and instead of the 4, let's make this a 2. I don't know if it recognizes that. Let's try it. Yeah, let's even play again. We'll put in a 6 at the end. Okay, so these are things that Java could never do before. Java has no idea what an A major looks like or what a G major chord looks like, but JFugue does. And so we've imported an external jar file, added those classes to our programming toolset because we were able to do settings and change the class path. Now, depending on what IDE you use, this setting will be buried in different locations, but it always has something to do with being able to find the path to new classes. Okay, in Eclipse, it actually pops up as soon as you start making the project and says what jar files are you going to be using. Okay, a little further down the line, you may get involved with things like Maven or Gradle, and these are external tools that manipulate the list of jar files you're going to be using, but don't actually download them and leave them on your hard drive. Because if someone changes and updates that jar file now, right, you're out of sync. So tools like Maven and Gradle are often used in more professional level IDEs so that you can say, I need to use these jar files, and it says, no problem. I will go out to the cloud storage site where they are, make sure we're working with the latest version, and import that. So once you start doing large projects, you'll be looking into that type of skill as well. Okay. For right now, let's just get started with downloading jar files and knowing how to incorporate them into your IDE and how to use them in your programs. It's an enormous amount of fun, and it opens a world of programming opportunities.